This right here is the Canon M50, and this is the camera that started it all. I've said a couple of times on this channel that I'm never gonna sell this camera, and that still remains true to this day. I have several lenses for this camera, and it's the one that really kicked off my creative journey. And I have some news that I'm actually not going to be selling this camera, but my mom recently asked me if she could take it on vacation with her to capture some images of her family back in her country. Of course, I said yes under one condition. One, she could never sell it, and two, that when she's done using it, that she gives it to somebody that can really appreciate it. So Mom, I'm making this video to walk you around the camera that you'll be taking with you. If anybody else is watching this video, I'm gonna make this video record in such a way that it's beginner friendly, and that if you're interested in also learning about the Canon M50, or you have one yourself, or you're planning on giving it a gift to somebody, that they would also be able to use this video. But I'm gonna be making a series of videos, probably around 4 videos. Part 1 of this is gonna be basically a simple walk around the camera so that you know how to make, so that you can take the best pictures possible. The first thing that we're gonna be talking about is we're just gonna be walking around the camera, and I'm gonna be explaining what the buttons do and what the dials do. Alright, so here is the Canon M50, super lightweight, really easy to hold in the hand. It has an interchangeable lens system. It's the EF mount, not a very popular mount with Canon, but it's meant for APS-C sensor cameras, and there are some good ones. I have a couple of good, decent M mount lenses from Sigma that really did an awesome job for me. I was really happy with these Sigma lenses. We'll go over the complexities and the different kinds of lenses in later videos. This lens is just the kit lens, the 15-45 with a variable aperture. It's an okay lens, but it's definitely a lens that's very easily forgettable. It's good to get you started though, but you'll outgrow it very, very quickly. We're gonna quickly walk through the outside of the camera and just go through the basic dials and the buttons of the camera. Keep in mind that I'm making this tutorial in 4 parts to not make this video incredibly long, and it's just gonna be a quick start guide so that it'll get you in and get you out there and get you taking pictures as quickly as possible. So we'll start here. This is the on-off switch. Obviously, if you want the camera on, you switch it to on and leave it on. This is the shutter button. The shutter button has 2 presses. It has a half press and a full press. The half press engages and starts the autofocus on your subject if you have autofocus set, and a full press takes and releases the shutter to take an image. And the full press releases the shutter to take an image. Again, you have a half press and a full press. Half press starts the autofocus, and the full press releases the shutter to take an image. Outside of the shutter is a dial. It's a rotary dial that changes the values of the 3 exposure settings in your camera. The 3 exposure settings are your aperture, the ISO, and the shutter speed. Using a button on the back on the dial, you'll be able to switch which exposure setting you'd want to change, and with a dial you change their values. There is also this little red button here, and that is a movie record button. It starts and stops a recording of a movie, and what's good about this button is that it doesn't matter what picture mode you're in, it'll start recording a movie once you press it. So you can be taking some snapshots, and then you press it and it'll start recording. And then to stop it, you stop it by pressing it again. This is the multi-function button. I don't have this button mapped to anything in particular. I'm not entirely sure actually what it does currently, but you won't be needing it very often unless you have it mapped to something specific. Setting the multifunction button isn't anything advanced, it's just that I don't particularly have a use for it. On the back of the camera, you're going to have an info button. This info button provides more information in the electronic viewfinder and on the back of the screen. So when you press it, you get more information like the histogram, you get a clear screen, or you get just a basic screen that lets you know how much more record time you have and how many images are left on the SD card. You also get to see all of the settings that are the 3 exposure settings: the aperture, the ISO, and the shutter speed. And that's the info button. If you happen to see too much info on your screen, just go ahead and press the info button and it goes away. I like to usually set it right at this screen here. It gives me the leveler, the automatic leveler, and it gives me the rule of thirds and the X going down. You also have the menu button here. The menu button is super powerful. It has a lot of information and a lot of settings that are very customizable, and you can change a lot of these settings here. I would tell you not to go into the menu very often, because if you mess up a setting or change a setting, it could really change the performance of the camera. I instead would ask you to go to the Q button, which is right in the center, the set button, and these are the menu items that are most frequently changed, and you're able to change them here a lot easier than digging through the menu. The full menu is not, I don't want to say that it's too advanced, but there's a lot of stuff in there. It's easy to get lost, and if you don't know what you're looking for, there's a lot of stuff that you shouldn't really be changing. The next button is the play button. The play button lets you review images that you have already taken. It also lets you review video that you've taken. So you get to have a playback here. I took a test shot earlier of my computer desk and my workstation. And when you have more images, you're able to go left and right and review more images. In this case, I only have one picture, so it only showed you one. You can also, to get out of the preview button, you can half press the shutter button or full press the shutter button, and it goes back to the live view. When you're in previewing an image, you can use these 2 buttons here to zoom in and zoom out of an image. Keep in mind that these buttons do not help you or do not zoom in the lens when you're in live preview. They only work when you're in preview mode. You can also map these buttons to something else if you wanted to, but again, I don't have these mapped to anything in particular. So this top dial here, this top dial is pretty easy to understand, but I'd really like you to stay in AV mode. AV mode stands for aperture value, essentially aperture priority. And it's the best setting, in my opinion, for any beginner to get the best results from their photo. What it does is it gives the shooter, the photographer, the person, the ability to control the aperture, and the camera automatically changes the rest of the exposure settings that are the ISO and the shutter speed. Going through all of these other menu settings and the dial settings is, for the sake of this quick set, is irrelevant. There's manual, there's shutter priority, there's program mode, there's a whole bunch. But again, please stay in aperture priority. It's the best mode for beginners. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to check out the bottom of the camera. The bottom of the camera is where you'll find the battery door. Battery door is very easy to open. It gives you a little bit of resistance, but you just hold down and it boings up, boing. And inside, once the door opens up, you'll see that there is a battery inside, and this also is where the SD card is. To release the battery, you push this down and the battery is released. There are some contact points here, and you can see that the contacts need to go in one direction. Please make sure that you look and that you're putting the contacts with the contacts inside the battery. If you happen to put the battery in backwards, the camera just won't turn on. You can see if you look down that there's a spring, and you can see the contact leads on inside the camera and on the battery. So try to get that to match up. Slides in, clicks in. Push this down, slides out. Put it in, clicks in, slides out. Very simple. Try to carry multiple batteries. These batteries aren't the biggest capacity and they do run out, especially if you leave the camera on when you're not using it. Consider turning the camera on and off when you're just having it resting on your neck, or when you're not using it, because the camera does turn on very, very fast, so you don't have to worry about leaving the camera on for an extended period of time. If you're using it, leave it on, and if you're done shooting it for a minute or two, go ahead and turn it off, and then when you're ready to take an image, turn it back on. It turns on very, very quick. Inside is also the SD card. The SD card is just a press and it pops up, and then to put it back in, you just press it fully all the way back in. Press in, press out, press in, and the battery, same exact thing. Very, very simple. All right, let's take a look at this lens here. So this is an interchangeable lens system, and this part right here is very, very important. To remove the lens, there's a button here on the side that you're going to want to press fully. That disengages the lock that holds the lens on. So hold it pressed down and rotate the lens counterclockwise. You'll see a white dot here, and the white dot should click counterclockwise and it comes off. This part is very, very careful. This is the sensor. To mount the lens back on, you match the white dot to the white dot. Click and click, and then to take it off, you fully press and rotate it backwards. Rotate it counterclockwise. Rotate it clockwise to secure it back on. And it's very, very important that we do not leave the sensor exposed for longer than we need to. It's very, very fragile. It's very sensitive. You do not want to stick your finger in the sensor. You don't want to put anything in the sensor. If you ruin this sensor, the entire camera is essentially worthless. It's very, very expensive to fix, and this is not a very expensive camera. When you don't have a lens on it, make sure to cover it with the proper lens cover as quickly as possible. This is the lens cover and the sensor cover. This will be in the bag included. So this is how I take off a lens. So I separate the lens cap and the sensor cap. I set the cap to the side. First I grab the sensor cover, match up the dot to the dot, and boom, now the sensor's protected. It's over. You don't have to worry. And the same thing goes for the back of the lens. The back of the lens is also very fragile, very delicate. The camera sensor is just so fragile. Just please be careful with it. To put it back on, this is exactly how I do it. I loosen the lens cap and I leave it still placed on, and then I press the button, release it, take the cap off, and then I grab the lens and I mount it, boom, in one fell motion. So what this is doing is basically leaving the least amount of time of exposure to the sensor, to the elements where sand, dust, water can get in there. You don't want any of that in your sensor, so you're quick about it. If you're on the beach, please do not change the lens. There's sand everywhere. Do not take the lens off. It would ruin the camera. All right, well, for the most part, I think I hit all of the important parts. Again, in this camera, it's very, very simple to use. It is very close to a point and shoot. It does have some complex features and settings, but again, I'm gonna leave it in a way that you can easily take it and just start shooting away. If you have any difficulties, please text me, send me a message, send me a, just let me know. Let me know what kind of troubles you're having, and we can get the camera back to fully functioning. I love this camera. This camera is so awesome, so easy to use, takes really cool pictures. There's a couple of lens options that we're gonna go into in other videos. In this one, like I said, I know that I'm repeating myself. It's just a quick overview of getting you started and getting out there and beginning to learn the wonderful art of photography. I absolutely love this camera. It's really what started it all. It's crazy. It's crazy that this camera right here, doing a couple of jobs, led me to better cameras, to more expensive gear, to just, I don't know, it's just wonderful. I really love photography. All right, I'm gonna leave you here. I'm gonna start to get emotional if I keep talking about it. All right, again, let me know if you have any questions. Leave them in the comments below. Happy to help out. This is the truest of the truest beginner cameras that you can buy. I hope that that you found that helpful, and I'm gonna make this video in a way that you can reference back to it as many times as you need to, so that you, in case you accidentally move one of the settings, you'll be able to go back to it. Also, go ahead and give me a call if one of the settings get changed and you can't get it back. I'll definitely help you out. So Mama, I hope that you found that video helpful. If I lost you anywhere, make sure to give me a call and I'll walk you through it. It's not as complicated as you think once you start to get really used to it. I'm gonna leave the camera in a way so that it's set up for you so that you can already get the most out of your camera. And it's not gonna be in automatic mode, so do not go to automatic mode, okay? Okay, Mama. Stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to be talking about the best photo settings and the best settings overall for the entire camera and the best settings for different scenarios. If you want to take a picture of the beach, or if you want to take pictures of your family, if you want to take pictures of our family, or if you want to take portraits, I'll walk you through what the best settings are going to be so that you can change them without having to mess with too many of the settings.